All right, diving right in today. We're tackling Esther Perel and,
Oh, mating in captivity.
yeah, mating in captivity, reconciling the erotic and the domestic.
Yeah.
It's all about how we keep things, well, how do we keep things hot in long-term relationships?
Especially with all the demands these days, right?
Exactly. Like right off the bat, Perel hits us with this kind of this central paradox, right? The things that make us feel secure, familiar, knowing what to expect, that stuff can actually like dampen desire.
It's like we need some kind of a mystery, some space, maybe.
Like, yeah, a synapse to cross is how Perel puts it. Keeps the spark alive.
Yeah, I get that. Eroticism needs a little bit of the unknown. If things are too predictable, well, that can get boring, feeling stuck. And who finds that exciting?
So how do we manage wanting both the security and the spark? Pearl says it all comes down to
Yeah.
like how much uncertainty we can handle in love.
Oh, that's good. Because too much uncertainty, that just makes you anxious. But too much predictability, well, we talked about that, boring.
Finding that sweet spot, that's
Yeah.
got to be the key.
She actually tells this story about Adele and Alan. They've been together forever, comfortable, but Adele feels the passion fading. But then she sees Alan at this conference, totally out of their normal routine.
Yeah.
And suddenly she's attracted to him again. Like he's this interesting guy, not just her husband.
Wow. Just that distance, seeing him outside their shared life, like reawaken that desire.
Yeah.
Makes you think, right, how often do we accidentally kill the excitement by only seeing our partner in like their everyday roles?
And it brings up a bigger question, doesn't it? How much of all the changes in how we view love and sex, over time shaped your ideas about what a relationship should be? Like think about it. How does all that affect what you look for in a partner or how you act in your own relationships?
It's crazy how much has shifted, even just in recent history. I mean, Peril traces this whole evolution, how romantic love brought passion and marriage together, and then bam, the sexual revolution changed everything again.
Yeah. It went from duty and, having kids to wanting it all, security and amazing sex, no pressure, right?
Right.
Perel calls it, what does she call it? Oh, yeah, the era of pleasure. Like, being satisfied sexually is a right, not some bonus.
I feel like that explains why couples feel so much pressure now. And then we get stuck thinking that talking about our feelings is like the only way to connect deeply.
Oh, for sure. Like, we have to analyze every emotion and be on the exact same page through, endless conversations.
Been there. But Pearl says, hold on. There's more to it than that. She talks about bilingual intimacy. So partners express love in different languages.
Yeah.
Words, actions, touch.
Makes sense. If we're only paying attention to words, we might totally miss other ways our partner's trying to connect.
It's like, Mitch and Laura. He wants physical closeness, not just sex, but touch as a way of, like, showing love. But Laura thinks it's only about sex, missing the deeper meaning.
She's only fluent in one love language, you could say.
Well,
And that leads to problems. It shows how important it is to recognize all the nonverbal ways we express love, too, and realize our partner might have a totally different love language than we do.
that makes me think about power dynamics and intimacy,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the bedroom. Peril tackles this head on, even when it clashes with our ideas about equality.
Right. It's fascinating how things we might see as off limits in daily life, they can become exciting in the bedroom. Like wanting some kind of power difference can be a turn on in the right situation, right?
Like Elizabeth and Vito, she's super independent but enjoys submission, in the bedroom.
Exactly. Doesn't make her any less powerful in the relationship as a whole. It's about her exploring different sides of herself and embracing desires that don't fit what society says.
And Peril says that's what eroticism lets us do. Explore those, like taboo desires in a safe way within a relationship. It's stepping out of our usual roles to try something new.
Yeah, and that connects to a bigger point. Freedom is crucial for desire. Not just trying new things sexually, but being our true selves in a committed relationship.
Having our own space, interests, individuality, it can actually make the connection stronger. Ryan and Christine, their story shows this. They felt trapped in their quote-unquote perfect life. Desire was gone until they admitted it. And then, by being more themselves again, boom, the spark came back.
So it's like needing space to breathe before you can come back together, with that passion. Hurl saying we got to keep cultivating that sense of freedom throughout the relationship, or else resentment builds up, feeling stifled, kills desire.
Feels like this constant dance, right, between closeness and distance, security and adventure. That balance is what keeps a fire burning.
And speaking of where things start, Perel has this idea of an erotic blueprint, right? Like our early experiences shape how we view and feel about intimacy.
So you're saying what? My childhood, even stuff I don't remember, could be affecting who I'm attracted to now, what turns me on.
It's possible, yeah. It's wild how those early hurts, even frustrations, they can sometimes turn into like sources of excitement.
Not saying it's okay if someone was hurt, of
No,
course.
of course not. But it's about seeing how the past can shape our desires in these complex ways. Like Melinda, her father cheated on her mom, and now she seduces and dumps men, mirroring her mother's pain.
Heartbreaking cycle, but it shows how deep those patterns run. And Perel's really careful here. Acknowledging those experiences shape us, but they don't define us.
And now think about becoming a parent. That's a huge shift for any couple. And of course, it impacts their erotic life.
Oh yeah, big time. It's like your world changes overnight. And these tiny humans need you constantly. It's draining physically and emotionally.
And then there's all the pressure to put the kids first, which is good, but it can lead to couples forgetting about their own needs. The relationship gets neglected and that spark fades.
Stephanie and Warren, their story got to me. She ends up choosing chores over sex. Just overwhelmed by motherhood. Always in that caretaking mode, hard to switch gears.
Yeah, I can see how all that pressure, the daily grind, can just crush desire. But Perel says it's more complicated than just being too tired for sex. Motherhood changes desire in a lot of different ways.
Right. Some women want sex less after having kids, while others actually feel more confident and sexy. What causes that, do you think?
Well, sometimes the demands, physical and emotional, they can drain you, make you feel disconnected from, like, your sensual self. But for others, motherhood is empowering. They accept their bodies more, feel more sure of themselves, and that actually leads to a better sex life.
So it's not the same for everyone. Which brings up something else Pearl says we need to be more open about. Fantasy.
Absolutely. We shouldn't be ashamed of our fantasies. It's a normal part of our erotic lives.
Instead of feeling guilty, we can use them to learn about ourselves.
Mm.
What do our fantasies tell us about? Like our deepest desires and fears, things we might not even realize we feel.
Think about Joni and Ray. Her fantasies are about submission. Turns out they're connected to her anxiety about asking for what she needs in the relationship. It's not about literally doing what's in the fantasy. It's about figuring out what it means.
Like a secret language we got to learn to understand. Peril even says we should think about our own fantasies, not to judge ourselves, but to gain self-knowledge. What are your fantasies trying to tell you? What hidden desires or anxieties are they pointing to?
Speaking of things we sometimes keep hidden, let's talk about infidelity. It's a tough one, but it's real for a lot of couples, and Peril dives right into how complicated it is.
Yeah, it's a really difficult topic. But Peril points out that people have affairs for lots of reasons. It's not always because they don't love their partner anymore.
Sometimes it's about finding something that's missing in the relationship, or a reaction to feeling trapped or suffocated. Now, affairs can definitely hurt, do a lot of damage, but Peril also helps us understand the motivations behind them. And sometimes they can even be a wake-up call for a struggling marriage.
Doug and Zoe's story really shows that. Doug's affair made him face what he wasn't getting in his marriage, and he ended up putting more effort into the relationship. Not the ideal way to get there, but it did force them to deal with some underlying issues.
Yeah, sometimes we need a jolt to see what's not working and to make changes so we can reconnect.
It's easy to get lost in the day-to-day. And forget to nurture the parts of the relationship that need attention.
And that leads us to a crucial point that Peril really emphasizes: intentionality. You can't just sit back and wait for that spark to come back by itself.
It's like if you want a beautiful garden, you have to take care of it. The
Yeah.
same goes for our erotic lives.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Dominic and Raoul, their story is perfect for this. They plan these incredible cooking projects down to the last detail, but their sex life, total chance.
And that's where Peril challenges us. She says, planning sex doesn't have to kill spontaneity. In fact, putting effort into our erotic lives can be liberating.
It's about making it a priority, giving it space. That can reawaken desire and deepen the connection with our partner.
Like anything else we care about, we got to put in the work if we want it to thrive.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this look at Perel's work, what does it all mean for you and your relationships? I think what really struck me reading Perel is how she blows apart this myth that passion and commitment can't coexist. It's not like you have to choose, is it?
It's more like understanding that desire in a long-term relationship. It has its own flow, right? It comes and goes. And that's totally normal.
Right. Those dips don't necessarily mean the love is gone. It's more about recognizing the patterns we get stuck in, like the subtle ways we might be accidentally killing desire without even knowing it.
So how do we fix it? Peril seems to be saying we got to shake things up a bit.
Exactly. It could be anything, really. Carving out more time for things we love to do, as
Right.
individuals, or maybe rethinking how we tell each other what we need, or even, digging into those fantasies we keep hidden away. Peril gives us a whole roadmap for getting that spark back. And remember, it's not about trying to recreate like that crazy intensity from the beginning when everything was new and exciting.
More about finding a new kind of eroticism, right?
Yeah.
It's one that's built on the intimacy and shared history you have in a long-term relationship. It's more mature, has more layers to it.
And it definitely takes being curious, wanting to play, stepping outside those comfort zones we build up over time. That's where the good stuff happens.
Embracing the unknown, even when it feels a little scary. Because, let's be real, the things that scare us most, sometimes those are the things that can make us feel most alive too.
Yeah, for sure. And we got to remember, it's not about reaching some perfect state of bliss like 24/7. That's just not realistic. It's about finding what works for you and your partner and knowing that what works today might not work next week?
It's a journey, not a destination. And maybe the beauty is in that constant discovery,
Yeah.
the way desire changes within a loving, committed relationship.
So, as you keep exploring these ideas and applying them to your own life, we want to leave you with this question. What's one small step you could take, even today, to bring more freedom, more playfulness, maybe more intention into your relationship? It doesn't have to be some huge thing. Even small changes can make a difference.
And remember, the best discoveries, well, those are usually the ones we make together. Happy diving.
It's funny, when I think back on all this, what really sticks with me from Pearl is this. She's saying, desire in long-term relationships, it's not a straight line. It has these ebbs and flows, and that's perfectly normal.
It is. And those dips, those lulls, they don't automatically mean like love's gone.
Right. It's more about noticing, the patterns we fall into, those little things we might be doing that actually kind of stifle desire without even realizing it.
So then what can we do about it? Pearl, she's all about shaking things up, isn't she?
Yeah. Sometimes it's about making more space for the things we each love as individuals. Sometimes it's like reevaluating how we talk to each other about what we need. And sometimes it's even about those fantasies, the ones we keep hidden. Pearl gives us all these tools for rekindling that spark. And what's important is remembering we're not trying to like recreate the intensity of those early days
Yeah.
when everything was brand new and exciting.
Right. It's not about going back in time. It's more about finding like a new kind of eroticism, a kind that's based on all the intimacy, the shared history you have in a long-term relationship. It's deeper, more mature.
And it definitely requires being curious, being willing to play, to step outside those comfort zones. That's where the magic happens.
It's about being open to what we don't know, even if it's a little scary. Because honestly, those things that scare us, sometimes those are the things that make us feel most alive.
Totally agree. And we can't forget this isn't about some perfect state of bliss 24/7. That's just not real life. It's about finding what works for you as a couple, what feels good for both of you. And knowing that might change next week.
Exactly. It's a journey, not a finish line. And maybe the beauty really is in that ongoing discovery, how desire evolves in the context of love, of commitment.
So, as you keep thinking about all of this, applying it to your own life, here's a question we want to leave you with. What's one small step you could take, today even, to bring more freedom, more playfulness, more intention into your relationship? It doesn't have to be some huge thing. Even something small can shift things.
And don't forget, the best discoveries, well, we usually make those together. Happy diving, everyone.